have stumbled upon words of great power, ancient forbidden techniques, a season of a TV series never filmed, and secret codes hinting at a leftist anti-Bush agenda. This is the story of Power Rangers Hexagon.
Excellent. So what have you got on this?
Okay, this is, no joke, what would have happened? So a little context, Power Rangers is based off the Japanese series Super Sentai. They just take the Japanese show, cut out the boring stuff that isn't the fighting, and replace them with American actors, and have American voiceovers over the fighting. The Sentai the year before had a ninja theme, and writer Amit Bhaumek had a very ambitious plan to fix up all the loose ends from the previous 10 years of Power Rangers seasons. So, the government has decided to create their own Power Ranger Academy out of a building called the Hexagon.
Which is just the Pentagon.
It's just the Pentagon with an extra side. And the leader of the Hexagon is Tommy Oliver, a.k.a. the Green Ranger, a.k.a. the White Tiger Ranger, a.k.a. the Red Zeo Ranger, a.k.a. the one that everyone remembers.
Their go-to guy, basically.
Yeah, he's like the one everyone loves. He's the loves. So, the new team of Rangers, the new Ninja Rangers, are doing their jobs when suddenly they're attacked by a group of mysterious Rangers with an anti-Hexagon agenda, and they're saying that the Hexagon is a perversion of the Power Ranger philosophy, and that it's intruding on the government, and that it's government intrusion onto everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, we realize that we find their leader, the original Red Ranger, Jason Lee Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And so, civil war erupts with generations of Power Rangers uniting as pro or anti-Hexagon before Tommy Oliver goes evil once again, and they all united under the anti-Hexagon banner.
Mm-hmm.
Jason and Tommy fight, one for the first time in 10 years. And finally, Tommy sees reason.
Kind of sounds like, what is it, Marvel's Civil War
This
event.
was before that.
This was before that, okay.
Yeah. Tommy sends in a notice of resignation to the government, and he has a final request. Disband the Hexagon. Everyone goes their separate ways. Fresh start for a new season.
Interesting.
It didn't happen because Disney was in the process of buying out the franchise, and they decided to cut costs by moving filming from LA to New Zealand.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if Disney would have wanted to do it anyway, because there's some political commentary hidden in there.
And I mean, if there's anything I know about Disney, it's that they aggressively want to come off as apolitical while being a mega corporation.
Yeah. It's like seriously, themes of government surveillance, they're literally in a building that's just the Pentagon with an extra side.
Which means there's more surveillance happening, because it's got more edges now.
Yeah, ow, the edge.
It's even edgier.
It's literally Power Rangers versus the Deep State.
You know what, though? Honestly, it sounds like a fun romp, and I'd be down to watch it.
I'd be down to watch it, too. If they ever make a sequel to the Power Rangers movie, which was actually pretty good, I want to see more of those themes. I'd want to see the Red Ranger fight. I want to see the Red Ranger fight an F-22 Raptor, goddammit.
So, let's say we take these Rangers and their anti-government theme. What can we kind of learn about telling an anti-government resistance story from the failure of Power Rangers Hexagon?
Number one, you have to be more subtle about it.
Oh, yeah.
And especially if, it's 2003, the Iraq War is about to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing, though. Subtlety's kind of a double-edged sword, because, oftentimes, if you hide a message that, this force is bad, people can sometimes miss it and unironically endorse the villains.
Wow, cool robots.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Warhammer phenomenon, though many people argue against the Warhammer phenomenon. But
Although, I mean, I'd argue that even if you're loud and clear, people will woefully ignore you.
Yeah, exactly. In my eyes, at the very least, like, subtext is for losers. Make things as aggressively blatant as you can, because people will still miss it. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, but then again, Power Rangers is a kid's show based off a Japanese show made to sell toys.
Oh, of course.
I mean, the stuff we talked about earlier in the episode where we forgot to use the microphone. Thanks, Audacity.
Oh, don't blame Audacity. It's doing its best.
Okay, never mind. That was all just sort of accidental subtext. That was just a combination of accidental subtext coming in from the whole design by committee thing.
Mm-hmm. So, like, when you have this sort of anarchical large committee, some weird subtext is gonna get thrown in there.
Yeah, the weirdest story of that has to go with the last season that Disney made, Power Rangers RPM, which they took a Sentai that was about saving the environment with talking animal cars and turned it into Terminator meets Mad Max.
Sounds like a good cross.
And also, it's a Power Rangers spoof.
Okay, yeah, because it's like it's a parody of itself.
Half of it is a parody of itself. The other half is a serious post-apocalyptic sci-fi story that just so happens to have the Power Rangers in it.
Mm-hmm.
It mixes surprisingly well.
Okay, tell me about it.
Okay, so it's the near future. All the robots in the world have gone berserk because of a computer virus named Vengeance that has gained sentience and wants vengeance on humanity.
Mm-hmm.
The very last city on Earth is a dome city called Corinth, somewhere in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Massachusetts, run by a mysterious group that nicknamed Alphabet Soup, which was made from the CIA, the FBI, basically every department of the government. They pooled their resources together. That's why it's called Alphabet Soup.
Okay, is it just American?
So far, there's no word on what happened, but I'm pretty sure they're all dead.
Okay.
Dead. To create and they basically turned this teenage girl into like a living computer,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, to become like a super scientist to create the next generation, to create humanity's next generation of defenders. Who are this crop of Power Rangers?
It's if it wasn't Power Rangers though, that would be a bomb-ass concept for, almost any piece of literature. So, like, I gotta admit, I kinda love it.
Yeah, it was basically Disney was stopped caring, and the new producer was like, you know what, this whole show's gonna get canceled anyway. Let's just get really weird with it.
I mean, getting weird with it is a motto I think that every good story writer should try to live up to.
Yeah.
That's my own personal philosophy, of course.
Yeah, and so there were episodes about the trauma of war, having to live in isolation. There was like a subplot involving the mafia,
Mm-hmm.
which was partly a reference to Escape from New York.
Okay.
From New York, it was so wild and out there for Power Rangers that when Disney sold the franchise, yes, Disney is capable of selling franchises and concepts they buy.
And they aren't just sort of like a mysterious...
them like a dragon.
Yeah.
The new copyright holders immediately took a look at this and thought, okay, how are we going to continue on for this? Let's just declare this thing an alternate continuity and move on.
Mm-hmm. As you do whenever you want to yeet a franchise into the abyss.
Although, they did actually come back and revisit it a few times.
Really?
Because, it's Power Rangers. They have to do a yearly team-up special.
That's fair enough.
Even when they move to New Zealand.
So, as far as post-apocalyptic, kind of world's gone to shit type storytelling, what do you think it actually does right?
Oh, it actually does a lot of things right. I actually like that there's a sort of it's less like Mad Max where everyone's surviving, but it's more like a more high-tech version of the Citadel where it's like you're under like a weird authoritarian government that you sort of distrust, but everything's already gone to shit, so might as well. So hey, they have a dome,
Mm-hmm.
protects you from the elements.
That's fair. You know what though? That's a trope that I kind of love is just the giant dome because it like with the Simpsons movie, you got to ask like who built this? How did they get it here? And why? And everything I've seen that has domes in it always fails to answer those questions,
Yeah,
and I love that.
I've always liked. Is there like are they just like secret? Do they just like secret? Like, there's an implication that like Corinth was like that the whole dome thing was sort of like a contingency plan. It was just like sort of the last resort thing, and that the government had always sort of kept this around just in case.
Okay.
By the way, incidentally, one of the Japanese Sentai seasons, the one that's actually being adapted into this year's Power Rangers, it took a lot from the American show, and especially RPM,
Really?
with a storyline of sentient computer virus, mass-produced soldiers, mysterious weirdo who serves the virus.
Honestly, if you weren't telling me that this was Power Rangers and you were just giving me a plot synopsis, this sounds like a sort of what's the word? It sounds like a cyberpunk kind of, post-apocalyptic insanity that I would be very much down for.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, like you can find like great inspiration for storytelling in a lot of things.
Usually in the weirdest places is where you find the best stories.
Yeah, like conspiracy theory forums, old Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay, now with the conspiracy theory forums, I am not encouraging anyone to go on those. Those are crackpot.
Yeah,
but there are some fun stories that get told
just
there.
steal some ideas from them. Just stay away from the anti-Semitic stuff.
Yeah, basically. Turns out Obama does not, in fact, have a second pair of lizard eyes that he hides beneath his first set of eyes.
Of course.
Okay, so we've dug into the Power Rangers and the madness that ensues with that. Now I bang my table and demand that you bring forth the next artifact for us to examine.
Another artifact, eh? I'm gonna have to dig a little.
All right, what do we got?
We already talked Power Rangers. We brushed a little bit on Super Sentai.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to the 70s for a little bit.
Okay, going way back. Let's see what we got.
It's Japan.
All right.
From the studio before Super Sentai, there was Kamen Rider. The name means the Masked Rider, but no one outside of the United States calls him that because there was a shitty American adaptation of the show called Masked Rider that ruined the name forever.
Mm-hmm.
The original Kamen Rider series from the 70s to the 80s were some of the darkest things ever made for children.
Does it give off like Akira vibes? I've never actually seen Kamen Rider.
Kamen Rider, this is the plot to the first Kamen Rider series.
Mm-hmm.
A neo-Nazi terrorist group kidnaps a Japanese college student, tries to brainwash him into the perfect soldier, and then he escapes and swears revenge on them.
Okay. It sounds pretty good.
And that's before you get into Amazon, before you get into all the sequel series. Turns out Shocker has a lot... Yeah, turns out this neo-Nazi cult has made a lot of enemies, and they all want... It's basically like the Doctor Who of Japan.
I mean, I'd be surprised if neo-Nazis didn't make a lot of enemies. That's kind of one of their cool tricks.
Yeah, of course. And that's where we get into stuff like Kamen Rider Amazon, who kills every monster by violently decapitating them.
Oh God.
And then there's the reboot series. And then there's they made a reboot series that kind of toned it down, but even then they go into weird, dark places.
So were they actually explicit with the violence in Kamen Rider, or
in the 70s? Back in the 70s Japan, apparently you could get away. You could get away with a lot of stuff in children's media that you couldn't get today. So there was there was some pretty explicit. There was pretty bloody violence in there.
Okay, so kind of like a Have you seen the new anime that came out, or not anime, manga, Chainsaw Man, kind of like that?
I guess. Like, Amazon was, like, the bloodiest one, and that's before you get into the ones... the reboot of Amazon made specifically for adults.
Mm-hmm.
That's on Amazon Prime. Haha, cross-promote. Haha, market synergy.
So...
No, I'm not joking. That's actually a thing.
Oh, wow.
The Americanized version calls them Amazon writers.
I mean, maybe once the strike is over, you and I can watch that.
Yeah.
So question is, with this old Common Writer series, you know, as I've been asking, what does it do right as far as storytelling?
It touches on a lot of it touches on a lot of themes. A lot of them are surprisingly dark. People die,
Mm-hmm.
but it also there's a sort of strong sense of poetic justice.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a line in like there was a Common Writer manga, Common Writer Spirits, that mixes together all the like the first 6 series, and there's a line that basically says like, you know, even they basically talks about how, you know, a lot of kids, they learn these concepts, right and wrong, justice, from Kamen Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a line that says, won't you believe in him? Even if there is no God or Buddha, there's always the masked rider.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, and I just thought, you would never get away with this in America. Even if there is no God, there's always this guy.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a little sacrilegious when it's framed
Yeah,
like
but
that.
it's a very... Even with there's a lot of blood, it's surprisingly humanist in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And like the later seasons, yeah, they're made to sell toys, of course, but there's also some stuff in there too. My favorite is Gaim
Mm-hmm.
Game, which looks absolutely ridiculous, but is actually one of the darker ones.
What is it again?
Gaim Gaim. It's about breakdancing samurai fruit gamer bikers.
I mean, those are definitely some words you put together, but
And they play like a game They play a game called Lock Seeds, themed around fruit, and it turns out that like the game is actually connected to like weird supernatural shit beyond our control.
interesting.
It was written by the guy who wrote Madoka,
You know what?
which makes
That makes
all
good
the
sense.
sense.
That makes good sense. So with that, then, how do you sort of synthesize the sort of grungy humanist stories, and how do you synthesize that into? How would you tell a
Like,
humanist story well?
the show basically they sort of imbue your main character with a sort of sense,
Mm-hmm.
with establish a sort of boundaries, basically establish a sort of interconnectedness, a sort of... Now I'm getting all weird and vague and spiritual.
Well, no, I get what you're saying. You don't want the character to. You want it to be a sense of sort of the character is both a important figure and at the same time just a cog in a larger machine.
Yeah, like they're...
And you have to strike a good balance with those two.
Yeah, like the most interesting, the later reboot, the later series that started in like 2000, they upped the ante by having multiple writers.
Mm-hmm.
Game actually has 15, and the most interesting one, that was the first series I watched, was Double, who is they're two different people and they combine into a single writer.
Interesting.
It's a detective story.
That honestly, with the combining into big people and the huge power scaling, kind of sounds like Big O, if I'm being real.
Also, Double, before the fight, he tells the monsters, "Count your sins."
You know, you can never go wrong with a good catchphrase, and I gotta admit, that one's pretty good.
Never be afraid to go into like really weird idea. Never be afraid to hide really dark stuff under really light-seeming stuff. Like Game, you know, breakdancing fruit ninjas, and then it turns out that the whole thing's like a cosmic horror story.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that if you can strike a good balance of like a inviting outside with a sort of chaotic inner piece.
Yeah, a bit like
Like-
Earthbound.
Yeah, exactly. If you can synthesize those two really well, that is like basically the way you get an insta classic. Because so many of the best stories I can think of have sort of that kind of feel where, at least the darker ones, where it has a, a light periphery and then the ominous undertones to them.
Yeah. And the most important thing I took away from Kamen Rider is everyone's got to have something to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Like every writer is deliberately fighting for something, whether it's poetic justice or solving a mystery or avenging someone's death,
Mm-hmm.
or trying to have a really fun time at school.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
one was the space one. It was space, but also it was like a school, and they went into space because there was just space from school.
okay. I mean, like, every good character should have something that they are, sort of fighting for. There has to be a reason that this conflict is happening, or else it feels kind of untethered.
I mean, that's basically like, I know this is basic stuff, but like even if there isn't a conflict, there isn't like a basic conflict. There has to be like a sort of thing that animates them.
Mm-hmm.
A reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Basically.
Their inner philosophy or their inner motivation.
Yeah. Something like that.
And if you can nail that down, like, everything else will fall into place, because all motivations are contradictory to some degree. Like,
Yeah.
every motive someone has will come into conflict with another person's motive at some point or another.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Well, cool. Thanks for having this cool talk with me.
Yeah.